Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, Dorian Finney-Smith has ankle surgery, and is Lonzo Ball set for a return to the Lakers? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter where you get your podcasts, this one's always free. Not like some of them you got to pay for. Always free. Never behind paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 35,000 subscribers are hanging out, watching the channel, leaving questions, leaving comments, talking to us, talking to each other. And I would say, Andy, that many of them are intrigued at the idea of a certain former Laker with a certain high-profile father potentially making his way back to Los Angeles this summer. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, some housekeeping news for the Lakers. Dorian Finney-Smith, who has a $15 million player option that he can pick up for next season, or perhaps opt out and maybe try to extend with the Lakers. He had ankle surgery. It was announced on Thursday, and will be, on the shelf for a little bit, but is expected to be ready for training camp.
Yeah, this from Dave McMenamin, ESPN report. As you said, underwent surgery on the left ankle, expected to be at training camp. Quote, the procedure will allow the 32-year-old Finney-Smith to play pain-free after cleaning up a lingering ankle injury that he fought to play through the past several seasons. Finney-Smith missed 8 games with what the Lakers called left ankle injury management after being traded to the Lakers from the Brooklyn Nets. Then, as you mentioned, the report gets into the different options for DFS, including, by the way, I was not even aware of some of the particulars in terms of what is at least legally through the CBA possible for DFS. All these options laid out by Bobby Marks. After the first day of the NBA Finals ends until June 28th, the Lakers can offer Finney-Smith a 3-year extension worth $54 million from June 29th to June 30th. LA can offer him a 4-year extension worth $90.2, with his player option being replaced by a new salary. If Finney-Smith opted in, the max he could sign with the Lakers would be a 4-year deal worth $96.5 million, assuming he signs after July 6th, when the free agent moratorium is lifted. I am willing to go out on a limb and predict that DFS's next season with the Lakers, whether he opts into the 15.4, whether he is playing on part of a contract that is newly extended, whatever, it is not going to be worth 4 years, $96.5 billion.
Although I will say,
that's not going to happen.
If it's helpful to the Lakers, I am sure he is willing to wait past the moratorium.
Yes.
Like if it helps make this happen, he'll sit quietly and wait. It's interesting to what DFS does. Guys like him, we are in such strange territory in terms of players trying to understand what the right thing to do vis-a-vis the CBA is, and what markets are going to look like, and how teams are going to spend, and all that kind of stuff. And there's certainly a school of thought that says the middle class in the NBA is going to get squeezed a little bit, players like DFS. And so I could certainly see a world where he opts into his $15 million player option, because the other thing that's, I think, somewhat surprising for fans who may not be as clued into some of these things was the part where, DFS is 32. He is not a young player. He's not a player in his prime. And so if he doesn't think the Lakers are going to offer him, a 3-year deal at $35 million or something that kind of sets himself up to play 3 or 4 more years and see what happens. It wouldn't shock me if he opted in, and that actually wouldn't be a bad thing for the Lakers. It's just one more contract that they can line up to expire potentially after next season.
Then in the meantime, too, regardless of what happens with DFS with a new contract and stuff, the fact that he's getting this ankle surgery seems like a really good thing in terms of the upcoming season. Everyone was aware that DFS had been dealing with that ankle injury that had been acting up. It was originally told to us when he was in Brooklyn, but as it turns out through Dave McMenamin's reporting, this is something that has actually been bothering him off and on for a few seasons now. And we talked about during the playoffs, DFS was not nearly as effective as he needed to be. If you look up his numbers in the playoffs, 6.2 points per game, basically the lowest of his playoff career, 5.8 field goal attempts per game. It is essentially the lowest of his career and easily the lowest per 36. Like, it's not even close. His field goal percentage from behind the arc, a little under 37%, basically the lowest of his career in the playoffs, 41% from the field, about middle of the pack, lowest rebounding numbers for his playoff career per 36. It was not a great playoffs for DFS, and that is likely the byproduct of having played so many minutes for so many early seasons on that bad ankle.
Well, he's right. He was not healthy when they acquired him.
Right, exactly. So the idea that DFS is getting what is being described as a cleanup surgery, and I recognize that no surgery feels minor to the person that's undergoing it, but in the grand scheme of surgeries, this does not sound like a particularly complicated one or a particularly scary one. This seems like something that might actually help DFS out a lot for next season, particularly, as we noted, as he ages. This type of stuff that he used to be able to play on more successfully, it's probably just getting a lot harder now.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if it's the same level of pain management, if it feels the same, but yeah, I mean, as you get older, it can be harder and harder and harder, robs you a little bit more of some bounce of, it's the NBA, man. It does not take a significant change for a player like DFS to suddenly look a lot more ordinary. I don't think he had a bad season with the Lakers, but it had some ups and downs.
He did not have a great postseason.
He had a bad postseason, but I don't.
As the season went along, though, with the exception of a couple games, like there was the game where he came off the bench against Houston. I want to say either late March, early April. Him and Gabe Vincent 20 points off the bench each, and really saved the Lakers in that game. He had some games like that, and overall
it was quiet. It wasn't, but
he started looking slower, I thought, as the season went along, more labored. Even in games where he played well, he looked like he was laboring more.
I think again, he wasn't healthy when they acquired him. He was playing a lot of minutes, and the Lakers were obviously in the thick of things. And DFS is that's part of one of the reasons teams like him so much and teammates like him so much is he's a guy who's going to get out and play and give you every minute that he possibly can, whether it is apparently in his best interest from a health standpoint or not. But as I said, he's not he's a good player. He's a good two-way player and a nice two-way wing, but he's not so elite athletically that if you take 5% or this injury, makes him 7% slower, a little bit quick. In the NBA, that is the difference between being a pretty high-end defender and a pretty ordinary one at times. And so it's just, it is an indication of why the Lakers were in such dire straits when they got to the playoffs last year, because they really didn't have reinforcements. It was, Luka got sick and, DFS is not healthy and Reeves has the bad toe and there's just nothing.
LeBron got hurt during, was it game 5?
Yeah. There was no second layer of support from the bench. I did TV, Spectrum Sportsnet, the Lakers TV station that did that Thursday afternoon. We talked about the bench, 16th out of the 16 playoff teams. And it's only because there weren't 17. And that is something that the Lakers have to figure out how to fix. Should JJ Redick be insulted? And is Lonzo Ball perhaps somebody who might help the Lakers bolster their bench? That's next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Olipop. It's a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda but want something supporting their health with just 2 to 5 grams of sugar, 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. Olipop is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Like traditional sodas, loaded with sugar, like 39 grams in a regular Coke, 44 grams in an orange Fanta. Olipop flips the script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and a gut-friendly ingredients like Ollie Smart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's a soda that tastes like a real thing, but actually good for your body. I love this one, the classic grape. It tastes exactly like the grape juice that you and I loved as kids. And I mean, exactly. It's clearly what Olipop is looking to replicate. But unlike the grape juice we all drank as kids, it's not overloaded with sugar and it's helping your gut. And that's a really big deal for me because beyond the health benefits, I don't actually like sweet drinks. And I was honestly really skeptical about Olipop, but then I tasted it, not skeptical anymore. And you can get a free can of Olipop. Just buy any 2 cans in a store and they'll reimburse you for 1. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find an Olipop near you. That's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA.
Let's get to Lonzo here in a second. It is interesting. Sam Amick has reported, we made the joke, Andy, on Wednesday, like at what point do you get insulted if you are an NBA head coach who has not been contacted by the New York Knicks, where your organization is where they are seeking permission to speak to you. Apparently, JJ Redick is on the list of not interested from the Knicks. They have not been, via Sam Amick of The Athletic, the Lakers have not been contacted by the Knicks asking for permission to speak to head coach JJ Redick.
Well, if it makes Redick feel any better, he is in pretty prestigious company, at least so far. It should be clear, so far, in terms of who has not been reached out to. From Sam Amick's report, quote, I spent part of Wednesday evening trying to figure out which other current head coaches the Knicks might have attempted to contact. And while there were no new names revealed, it's worth sharing that league sources say the Knicks did not request permission to speak to this high-profile coaching crew. The Pacers, Rick Carlisle, he's a little busy. The Warriors, Steve Kerr. The Bucks, Doc Rivers. The Clippers, Ty Lue. And the Lakers, JJ Redick. Like, I do love that the Knicks, as delusional as they have seemed in this entire FUBAR process, has at least had the grounded, restraint to not ask for permission to speak to Rick Carlisle while he is coaching in the finals.
I mean,
like,
there are
who says it's a bleep show over there in New York?
I guess, but I mean, there's a lot of time between these games. I mean, the NBA seems to be in no hurry to bust through the finals. I mean, they do have, Carlisle's got time. They're up 2-1.
Also, Sam did not confirm whether or not, confirm or deny, I guess, nothing either way, whether or not the Knicks did attempt to get permission to talk with Mark Daigneault with the Thunder. Like, we just know that they didn't go to Rick Carlisle.
I'm looking forward to the fascinating conclusion of this story. It is very clear that teams are very much in the market of embarrassing Knicks management right now. So one of the more feel-good stories of last season, not just necessarily based on how he played, but as much that he played, was the return of Lonzo Ball to action with the Bulls after at least a couple seasons of essentially not playing at all, and there's knee problems that were expected to potentially end his career. And he comes back and he plays, and it wasn't an injury-free season. He actually had some wrist issues and stuff as well. The Bulls were obviously incredibly careful with him, but he was out on the floor and played pretty well for Chicago when he played.
Yeah, I talked with Hayes, the co-host of Locked On Bulls, during a recent episode of my ESPN LA 710 radio show, Lakers Talk, which comes on every week, and obviously do a lot of deep dives into the Lakers. And because I had Hayes, we were actually really talking about the NBA Finals, because Hayes is also one of the many hosts of Locked On NBA as part of the network's national coverage. But I had been curious because Lonzo's name, I've heard it come up before. We even saw that Jovan Buha from The Athletic in a recent mailbag said that he thought that the Lakers would be interested in Lonzo. Quote, it's just a matter of what his price would be and what you have to factor in the health and the history, and just you can't pencil him in for 60 games. So whatever you're giving up for him, there has to be some level of discount. So you're factoring in this dude might just play 40 to 50 games. He's a guy you have to load manage. Like, how can we load manage him and still get him to April in one piece? I talked to Hayes about the way he played. And as you mentioned, Brian, the health issues are still there. And Lonzo does not look fully like himself yet. But to your point, there were times where he looked very good. And specifically, I asked Hayes if he thought Lonzo could be a good fit alongside Luka, and specifically supplementing some of the things that you would want on a team with Luka, whether you're talking about defense, whether you're the secondary ball handling, stuff like that. And he said absolutely. He actually thought Lonzo could be a very good fit. But there is the question of the health. And then there's the question of how do you actually make a deal with the Bulls work on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. It's like, what do you give up? I mean, I think they signed him to an extension for, I want to say 2 years, 20 million.
Yeah, and the second year is a team option.
Right. And so like you could trade, a Gabe Vincent and something, like you can make it work, but it's got to be something that makes sense for Chicago as well. I think like this to me is one of those interesting equations, because it's like he didn't shoot the ball particularly well last season. He was, in the 30s from the field. I think he was about 33% from 3-point range, 34% from 3-point range, 36% from the field. But while he was, he came into the league with the Lakers and outside shooting was a problem. Before he got hurt, as opposed to just the normal amount of hurt that Lonzo always was, he had actually started to become a much more reliable 3-point shooter. He shot in 21-22, he was up to 42% on 10 and a half a game. The year before that, he shot 38% on 12 and a half 3-pointers a game. So I'm sorry, per 100. That's per 100.
I was going to say, wait, what?
Sorry, that's per 100 possessions. In reality, it's 7.5.
Steph doesn't even take that many.
No. Sorry, 7.5. 7.5 real, and then 8.5 the year before that. Okay. But still, that's volume. That's
it is volume. Absolutely.
It's not 11, but it's volume. But you gotta remember too, like those were seasons when he was playing well over 30 minutes a game when he was healthy enough to play. So, he's as a passer, he is still, the court vision is still incredibly impressive, and he still is a strong defender. So, like in a vacuum, would Lonzo make your team better? Yeah, he would help the Lakers. But how do you get him without giving up either too many players or whatever? And it's another example of a player, we talked about it, like Brook Lopez or Steven Adams or whatever. Like, they're good and they solve some problems, but they sort of create others at the same time. So I would be for it. Like, would you swap out? Let's just say you could do it and Chicago was interested for some reason. Would you swap Gabe for him? Gabe for Lonzo?
I would seriously consider it, because I think if you can keep Lonzo on the court, and that is, to be clear, a big if, like a huge if, I think the upside with Lonzo is a lot better than the upside with Gabe. Like, Gabe's floor may be better just in the sense that he's more reliable to stay on the court, or at least based on last season. I know his first season with the Lakers, he was hurt a lot, but for the majority of Gabe's career, he's been able to stay on the floor more than Lonzo.
Right.
So in that sense, his floor is probably higher, but there's no question the upside and ceiling is better with Lonzo.
Right. 6'6", longer reach. Gabe's a good defender, but Lonzo provides something different. That said, like if you ever needed, you had 2 weeks where you needed your backup point guard to start for you, that could be a challenge for Lonzo, because I don't think he's going to be in a position where he's going to be able to play back-to-backs next year. I don't think he's going to be in a position where you can ask him to play 30 minutes a night for a 2-week stretch. Like, I think he's going to be, it seems at least, Maybe you heard differently, but it seems at least he's going to be kind of capped in that 25 minutes a night, careful to get him through a season space for a little while longer, at least.
I honestly have no idea. I mean, I
missed
not
2
even
full seasons.
No, I'm not even questioning the veracity of what you think could be the case. I'm simply saying so people understand. I have no idea,
and I don't know either. I'm not. This is not.
Well, the reason I truly don't know, outside of just not knowing from an informational standpoint, is what would need to be done with Lonzo once he's been back on the court and has had an entire offseason not playing. I don't know how much any restrictions would continue once he's been back on the court and has had that type of time off. Like I just genuinely don't know.
One thing I would expect, and we'll go to break after this, I would expect him to be better next year. I would, you have a full off season, you trust the stuff a little more, you're making things stronger, whatever. The shooting that was so bad last year, I would expect to get closer to his career levels.
When we get back, though, I did a little bit of thinking about how the Lakers would try to get Lonzo, and to your point, what's in it for Chicago. And it speaks to, I think this could be a tricky trade, but also speaks to how some of the ghosts of trades past are now coming back to haunt the Lakers. So we can get into that coming up next. Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. We are in the finals. Game 4 is approaching, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't miss moments, whether it's game-winning shot or a breakout player. Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin. There has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in a game before the tip-off and live. Player props, performance trends, same game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart, win big. You can track players who consistently show up in big moments, but also like when they put on those superhero capes, how they tend to take over games. Those trends can help inform your next bet. Maybe you take that knowledge, roll it into a same game parlay, press things up, keep it interesting and exciting. And if you're new to FanDuel, this is the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, pick something really obvious. You get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. So I started thinking about, Brian, like how could the Lakers actually obtain Lonzo Ball? Because for all the reasons we talked about before, you're not including a first to get Lonzo. And I would not include Dalton Connect.
I mean, would I include a first if I was Oklahoma City and I had 80 of them? Sure. I might consider it, but not when you only have one that you
can exactly. Well, that's the point. From the Lakers' perspective, they have one pick that for the time being they can use in a trade. You're not going to use that on Lonzo. I would not include Dalton Connect in a trade for Lonzo. So would a second round pick, and when I say a second round pick, I mean it literally, because that's also the only second rounders the Lakers have, unless maybe they buy some and use that to try to attach to Gabe or Maxi Kleber, someone like that. Like, that's basically all they have. Like, I was thinking maybe even say you offer Maxi Kleber and Shake Milton, and then the Lakers take back Lonzo and Julian Phillips, a young small forward that the Bulls have, and the Bulls could cut Shake, save a couple $1 million maybe, but Phillips is a young guy. He played 15 minutes a game. I can't picture them wanting to do that. And then the Lakers have nothing else to offer unless the Bulls just really want Gabe or Maxi, or I guess Vando, as actual players. So like the Lakers have nothing else to offer. I would
certainly offer Jared Vanderbilt.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, unless they want them as players, there's nothing they have to offer that would be reasonable to offer in the first place. So then you start thinking about a 3-team trade or something, but like, this is a very small stakes 3-team deal.
Right.
Like,
you're putting in a lot of work here for and by the way, I made the joke about I would offer Vando, like, and what I'm getting at there is more if you have an opportunity to get away from that contract without having to attach stuff to it, which is the perception I think that a lot of people have, that like the Lakers really want to trade Jared Vanderbilt. They either have to take an unappealing contract in return or add some sort of sweetener to it. I wasn't really evaluating that. Like, even with the Lakers are like, if you trade Vanderbilt, you're creating a hole that needs to be filled. Now, it's on one side of the ball, and we've seen the flaws that Vanderbilt has, but he's still an important part of the rotation that if you trade him, you need to have the means to replace.
Look, I'm just throwing out names that match.
No, I know. I'm just, but I kind of made the flippant comment about it, and I guess I would think about it, just if for no other reason than the duration of the contracts. Yes. And I think you can find, given what we Vanderbilt's not going to become an offensive, like, he is what he is. And what he is useful, but problematic and limited in certain ways. And I think you can probably find a player who can do some of, or most even, of what he does. But even any player they trade in the rotation has to be replaced, because definitionally this was a team low on depth. And so if you're trading any part of that depth, it's hard for the Lakers to do 2-for-1s or 3-for-2s. Like, you have to have a plan to replenish anything you get rid of.
And then, if nothing else, like, thinking about the scenarios to try to get Lonzo. And like I said, unless the Bulls would just take the second round pick and that's it, in which case I would do that. If nothing else, this got me thinking about the damage that's been done from the first round picks and second round picks that the Lakers have often used as sweeteners to help them unwind mistakes, like both ends of the Russell Westbrook deal, or picks second rounders that they attached to send out Marc Gasol, to send out JaVale McGee, a pick attached to Jalen Hood-Schifino as part of the Luka deal, because JHS on his own was not enticing enough to Utah, even as a rebuilding team, that just getting a crack at JHS would be enough. Like, Kendrick Nunn, yes, the trade for Rui, obviously I think the Lakers won that trade. It was a good trade for the Lakers, but it was unwinding the mistake of bringing in Kendrick Nunn in the first place. It even makes it so a good trade like the DFS one, you have to attach all those picks on there, or even what was logically attached to acquire Anthony Davis or to acquire Luka. Like, those are deals that you absolutely use first and second round picks on, but you only have so many to go around. And the Lakers spent a few years, frankly, recklessly burning through those.
Yeah, no question. Asset management has not been a strength of the Lakers, even when they've done things well. I mean, they've generally, if you take give them a grade over the last 6 seasons or 7 seasons, that has definitely been a weak point for them on the proverbial report card. And you're right, there's a point at which you wish you had some of that stuff back. I mean, like, I think it can be, draft picks can be overrated, and teams can sort of hoard them and, treat them too preciously and be like, oh, we can't give up a second first rounder for that. But, for player X, Y, and Z, and you find yourself with more of these picks than you can use. That said, I do think we're entering an era where a team like Oklahoma City, the expectation has always been, oh, they'll trade some of that stuff for a star or for a high-profile player. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to hold on to most of these picks, continue sort of trading back on these things, picking, drafting, and stashing, and whatever. And when players like Cason Wallace, or the next time Lou Dort is a free agent, so they can afford to pay their top-tier guys and don't have to overpay for the second-tier guys on their roster. So I think that the nature of draft picks is changing, but the Lakers they treated those things as disposable because they've always been a team that free agency, trades, attract players that way, big swings and all that. The little details, the little moves, the stuff you do with second rounders hasn't been a priority. It's always been, something that's just sort of been seen as an afterthought.
Yeah. And Again, it makes it so a small trade, like theoretically for Lonzo Ball, unless Chicago would do it for just getting a second round pick and, essentially swapping salaries. It's hard for me to imagine without roping in a third team, which,
right,
again, that's starting to get really complicated for what is a pretty mid to lower tier trade. If nothing else, it feels more complicated than it should, and that speaks to the problem.
Where I think something like this seems more likely is the Lakers, like both Chicago and the Lakers, being part of a larger deal, being part of a 3-team deal, a 4-team deal. Kevin Durant moves from Phoenix to God knows where.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about a challenging trade market right there. And what do you get for Kevin Durant if you're Phoenix? But that's a separate question for the Locked On Suns folks. But that's what I've been focused on heading into this offseason are these big trades, big movement. That's why, if you're the Lakers, I think you want Giannis to move. You want Durant to move. You just want big trades that are harder to facilitate, where you need more teams to get involved and pick off a player here, send a contract there. And maybe all the Lakers end up with is Lonzo Ball in this giant 15-team mega trade. And maybe all they send out is Gabe Vincent and, I'm just throwing out a name, Jordan Goodwin or something like that, and I know that's not somebody that a lot of fans would want to trade, but you get the point. And that's it. And they're like almost like an afterthought. That's where I think the Lakers are going to be able to make moves for a player like Lonzo, where the one-to-one team A, team B, just working with each other stuff doesn't line up.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case. And we've talked about it many times. Rob Pelinka has said he thinks it's going to be an active offseason. He has said that the Lakers are going to be involved. That means Rob Pelinka is going to have to be very creative, working with a limited amount of resources. So, get to thinking.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers. Hope everybody who is a dad, has a dad, knows a dad, aspires to be a dad, whatever it might be, has a great Father's Day this weekend. We'll see everybody on Monday.